for the Hudson Plan Commission meeting, special meeting of April 7th, 6 o'clock. If we can do a roll call, that would be great.
Yep. So Fred Jorg.
I am here.
Frank Rhodes.
Here.
Kurt is absent tonight. Mary Claire Potter.
Here.
Hat Casanova.
He's joining us right now.
Yep, it looks like he's coming in right now. Rich is gone tonight. And then Randy, of course, you're here. So we have 5 members.
I'm here.
Thank you.
Thanks, Pat.
Hey, congratulations, Randy.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is number 3, consideration of our minutes from the last meeting. Are there any corrections or revisions?
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any other further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. Number 4, new business. Discussion possible action on recommending the Common Council set a public hearing date for a zoning map amendment application from AR Agricultural Residential to B2 General Commercial and a comprehensive plan amendment from Neighborhood Commercial to General Commercial on the eastern half of each property for parcel 020-1084-00-000 and 020-1083-90-000 and 020-1404-14-000 Hudson Physicians SC.
Right. Thank you, Randy. Good evening, Plan Commission. Before we jump into the rezoning request item for Hudson Physicians, which is the next item on our agenda, this first item is a preliminary step to that. So staff is requesting the Plan Commission to forward a recommendation to council to set a rezoning public hearing for May 3rd. So that being said, that's what our recommendation is.
Any questions? I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion on recommendation of a public hearing? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Number 4B, discussion possible action on rezoning the recommendation to Common Council for a zoning map amendment application from AR Agricultural Residential to B2 General Commercial and a comprehensive plan amendment from Neighborhood Commercial to General Commercial on the eastern half of each property for parcel 020-1084-00-000, 020-1083-90-000, and 020-1404-14000 Hudson Physicians SC.
Right. Thank you again. So Hudson Physicians is requesting to rezone 3 parcels that they recently annexed into the city of Hudson. These parcels lie on the east side of Carmichael Road, north of I-94, and across from the Hillcrest Drive intersection. Hudson Physicians is seeking to change the zoning type from AR Agriculture Residential to B2 General Commercial in order to accommodate their intended use as a primary care clinic operation. Along with the rezoning, a comp plan amendment will also be necessary for the eastern halves of the 3 parcels. Currently, the comp plan splits the 3 parcels down the middle, leaving their western halves closest to Carmichael Road as general commercial and their eastern halves toward the town of Hudson as neighborhood commercial. The Hudson Physicians is seeking for the neighborhood commercial portions to be amended to match the general commercial land use designation. As this is a zoning and plan change, staff has given you 3 options to choose from in making your decision on this item. You may either approve, deny, or postpone it. So with that, I will hand over the floor to all of you for discussion and deliberation.
Anybody want to open up the conversation?
I want to ask a general question, and if it's my turn.
Go ahead, Fred.
Who owns Hudson Physicians? Is that locally owned, or is that a front name for Health East or somebody else? I mean, I just want to know who owns Hudson Physicians. Who are we?
Who's represent? I'm sorry, who's representing?
I am Randy.
Okay, Nick.
Yeah, this is Nick Vivian. I'm representing the Hudson Physicians Group. So Hudson Physicians is locally owned by the physicians that work in the clinic and that operate the clinic.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Any further comments or concerns?
Randy, are you asking just from the plan commission members or anyone?
Right now, just plan commission members, but and you're next then if no one has any questions.
Very good. Thanks, Randy.
Mary Claire.
Just a question, am I missing or I just can't find, what was the outcome of the neighborhood meeting? Are those notes in here and I just haven't seen them?
They are. I did. Yeah, they are on page 26 of the document. We did conduct the neighborhood meeting on. Let me see if they are. Yeah, I'm sorry. They're at page 28.
George Floyd while being held down in the car
Of the document. So the meeting was held on March 29th. Many of the folks who are here as part of the meeting tonight were also involved in the neighborhood meeting. We talked about a number of issues. I've got them listed as items 1 through 6.
Excuse me, Nick, I'm not finding it on page 28. Is there a different page number I should go to?
I did not see them either, Mary Claire.
I'm not sure, and I'm just looking at the website, the packet on the website.
Okay, Fred, go to try 35.
Well, I'm staying here right now, but
Nick, will you give us an executive summary of that meeting?
Certainly.
Plus and minuses.
Yeah, absolutely. So you have my presentation that I walked through with the group, and I won't necessarily go through that. But ultimately, what we're seeking with respect to this application is the reason. You'll recall that when the property came in through annexation, it always comes in at the lowest zoning level available to the city. So the property has come in as agricultural residential, which is how it exists today. That's how it's zoned today. So it has to be rezoned to something, particularly for a commercial use. And so we're asking that it be rezoned consistent with your comp plan, which is a commercial use. As Tiffany had indicated, your future land use map has this property split east and west. The 50% to the west is intended to be general commercial. The 50% to the east, neighborhood commercial. We're seeking to have the entire parcel zoned general commercial, which is the reason for the comp plan amendment. A lot of the discussion centered on really 6 kind of key factors, which aren't related to zoning and they're not related to the comp plan amendment. They're predominantly related to the layout and the look and feel of the building, which are really separate issues. Happy to discuss any of them tonight, but they include buffering of the property related primarily to the housing on the north and the east, the location of the right-of-way on the north, so the road that will swing to the north, and ultimately that'll be part of site plan discussion. Access for the residential properties to Carmichael Road, the location of the roundabout that is built into this development that will ultimately serve the properties to the south, the future commercial development, the location of drainage ponds, and the integration with the development property to the south. There was also discussion about lighting and discussion about some of the other aspects of the development itself. Again, a lot of that stuff hasn't fully been developed because we're simply talking about the zoning, the use classification And there will be submissions here later this month from Hudson Physicians with a lighting plan, with a landscaping plan, with building specific plans. So the intention of the neighborhood meeting was to show the general look and feel of the building, have some of those conversations, and ultimately a lot of the core details will be fleshed out as the remaining submissions are made for the other components of the approval process here down the road.
So again,
Oh, go ahead.
so again, what we need to focus on as plan commissioners is that this is a zoning request, not the concept at this point. Now, obviously, it does go into the decision ultimately, but we need to focus on the rezoning. I'm certainly glad to hear that, Nick, you're involved with this project, because as in the past developments that you've worked on, most every item that you even listed on this has been addressed and taken care of responsibly by the developer. So I'm hoping that that will continue. With that, any plan commissioners have questions?
Move to approve zoning change.
And I'll
Is there-
second.
Okay. Is the plan commission willing to listen to the general public for comments?
Oh, sure.
Absolutely.
Okay. Try to keep it brief, and we'll start off with Chris Anderson, Haywood Carey.
Thank
State
you,
your
Randy.
name and record or name and address for the record, please.
Very good. Thank you, Randy. My name's Chris Anderson. My address is, well, do you want my home address or my business address, Randy?
Whatever you're comfortable with,
Well, okay, I'll give
as
you
long
that.
as we can find you.
Well, I spend most of my time at the office, so I'll give you that one. 816 Dominion Drive, Hudson, Wisconsin, 54016. As I said, my name's Chris Anderson. I am an attorney here in Hudson. I've been contacted by several of the people's names that you see on the screen here today. Mr. and Mrs. Vinup, Mr. and Mrs. Helland, Mr. and Mrs. Yoakum, and then also Mr. and Mrs. Domeyer. They did have that meeting. Some of them have attended, maybe all of them, I think, attended the meeting, the neighborhood meeting back a week and a half ago now. And for some of them, I believe that was the first time that they had heard that this was all shaking down and potentially going to change the look and feel of the neighborhood. So after that, they came to talk to me and to address the issues that they have regarding both the zoning change or the requested zoning change, and then as we potentially go forward, the other issues that may come up with the development plan, etc. With that said, I'll make my comments, and then I don't know if I do a good enough job, maybe that'll be sufficient for the rest of the folks. But if I don't, they may have some things that they want to add to my comments.
Okay.
So the first thing, these folks own some of the lots that are adjacent to the property that's at issue before the Plan Commission. But they don't just own property, it's their homes. It's where they live. It's where they have lived for quite some time. And they're obviously very concerned about the look and feel of the neighborhood and how changes like this may affect their ability to continue to use and enjoy their homes. They are deeply concerned about the effects that may come from the change in zoning and then also the development of this piece of property. I'm just going to list some of the concerns. This is not meant to be an exhaustive list, but some of the concerns that they have, for example, the road on the east side of the property. And I understand that that may not be a specific to zoning. However, I think as you indicated, Randy, it all comes into play when you're discussing these things overall. The road on the east side of the property brings with it more traffic. It does change the feel of the neighborhood, and allowing the zoning change to occur allows that road to potentially be put in, allows the building of a large building to be placed. And that road that we're talking about is within 50 to 100 feet of these folks' houses. And why is that a big deal? Well, that's a big deal because it's a commercial road, if you want to classify it as such. It's not, in other words, it's not a residential road. It's a commercial road where people are going to be driving their cars to patronize businesses. And they're not driving their cars there to get to someone's house, which is obviously a significantly less used thoroughfare if it's a residential road as opposed to a commercial road. So in terms of that road, just by way of example, it doesn't seem to go anywhere in the plan. And I've talked to Nick, full disclosure, he and I have talked, and we have a good working relationship, always have, I assume we always will. And so I don't know that the Hudson Physicians really wants that road in there either. So which leads me to think that maybe the city's got it in there for some reason. I don't know. I've not been part of those discussions. But that's a concern because now you've got a commercial road going by people's houses within 80, 75, I don't know, 50 to 100 feet. So I'm picking the middle, 75 to 80 feet of their house, of their windows, of their doors, where they recreate in their backyard. And that's a concern. Obviously, it's a big concern of these folks. The other thing with that road is it doesn't connect anything, at least currently, and there's huge topography issues out there. And I think that can be seen just by taking a drive or taking a walk out to the property to see what we're dealing with, at least to the north of the property that Hudson Physicians proposes to build on. So that's one issue. There's other issues, again, because we're now taking this entire piece of property and turning it into commercial and proposing to turn it into commercial as opposed to commercial / neighborhood commercial, is you've got an entire parking lot that is that's all paved, which I understand that's what parking lots are, but it's a really large piece of pavement all of a sudden. Their asphalt maybe is. But we've got drainage issues, and we've seen the plans, we've seen the drainage ponds, I think is what they're for, but there's concerns there too by these folks. And what happens with that water when it runs off? There's an elevation issue. These homes sit lower than the property that we're talking about, and these homes to the east I'm talking about. And that water is going to run off somewhere. Now, maybe it goes into the drainage ponds, but we all know that drainage ponds aren't infallible. They're not perfect. That water is going to seep, it's going to leak, it's going to make its way to their property. And then the other issue that we have is that we've got a situation where the city of Hudson, obviously there's city sewer and water. There's also storm water runoff. But these folks are now in the town of Hudson. They're septic and their well. They get their water from a well. So it's now all of a sudden you've got water going into the ground. How does that affect their septic and well? We don't know, I guess. But that's an issue that certainly needs to be addressed. And when we change the zoning and change the comprehensive plan, well, that's going to affect these folks' property now, just because you're going to add to the burden on their property with just water runoff, just by changing the zoning code and the comprehensive plan to allow for the building of this type to go in. I don't, I've talked to many of all of the folks that have come to see me and come to talk to me. They understand that, and I'm going to put my air quotes now, progress happens. But it's progress for the sake of progress. It just needs to be done in the right way. And the concern about the zoning change, I think all these issues need to be considered in making that change, especially with respect to the comprehensive plan change, because it does affect the neighbors just to the east and also to the north, which is where I believe the Domeyers are from this property. The other issue that Mr. Vivian talked about, he talked about buffering, and he's right, that is an issue. He and I spoke about that. And the buffering between this very large building and their homes also needs to be taken into consideration. And that's part of the commercial neighborhood versus just the general commercial. Commercial neighborhood, we all know, is there for the purpose of having a business that fits the neighborhood, so to speak. Those are my words, nothing from ordinance or statute, but it fits the neighborhood. So it's limited to something that makes sense for that neighborhood. And whether this does or doesn't, whether the 160,000 square foot building that's going to be within a couple hundred feet of these homes makes sense for that neighborhood is a question, and I think is directly affected by the proposed change in the comprehensive plan. And so that's obviously a large concern of the folks that came to see me, of my clients. So, and specifically with respect to the buffering issue, we do have the sight lines. What does it look like now? The trees, and the lighting, the noise, the traffic, the height of the building. all of those types of things affect the or can be affected by the change in the comprehensive plan. Because again, if you have a business that's going in there, a use that's going in there that fits the neighborhood, that fits within the commercial neighborhood as opposed to general commercial, that's where this zoning affects these people's interests in this property, because now all of a sudden, as a general commercial change, or a change to the comprehensive plan, is it all being general commercial? That changes what can go in there, and obviously what the rules are. So those are all very concerning issues to my clients. That and again, the zoning piece that you mentioned, Randy, does affect those issues, and all those issues I think need to be considered in determining what the Plan Commission is going to do or recommend with respect to the request to amend the comprehensive plan. The last thing, and this is last thing that I've got on my list anyway, and this is not meant to be an exhaustive list. There are others, but I'm stopping it here. But you know, there's obviously, these folks live there. They've lived there for quite a while, and the location, as you all know, is awfully nice. I mean, it's good access to Hudson. It's good access to the interstate. It's good access to everywhere. It's centrally located. But that's not it. I mean, it's also the neighborhood. It's got mature trees that are well, it's called Jack Pine Drive for a reason. I mean, they're very tall trees out there that lend themselves to a nice neighborhood feel. I would venture a guess that when you go home at these places, you sort of feel like you're going out into the woods, even though you're basically in the center of Hudson. So those types of things, if that gets changed significantly, obviously we're at some point in time, the valuation of the properties that are sitting out there that have been there for years could be negatively affected as well. So that's another concern. Is that the primary concern? No, not. I mean, it's a big concern, but all these others are more important because it's the enjoyment of the property. So obviously, the neighborhood could change significantly if the comprehensive plan is amended, and that's very concerning to these folks. And I'll stop there. And if any of them want to add to what I've said, I'd ask the Plan Commission's indulgence in that if they so choose, or maybe they're good. But I'll leave that up to them. Thanks, Randy.
Any other brief comments from the folks out there?
Nothing from my end. I think Chris represented my views quite well. I live at 425 Jack Pine on the east side of the development, and he represented the concerns, especially around the water runoff affecting the well and septic systems, as well as the proximity to the road and the trees, sight lines, and buffering. So those are the primary issues as it relates to us. So we would love to have those things addressed as part of the plan.
Any other neighbors? Nick, did you want to answer some of those questions at this point, or?
Well, let me just make this comment. And Chris and I did have a really good conversation within the last few days. Hudson Physicians has every interest in working with all of the adjacent property owners to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to screen and buffer and protect the way that the land looks and feels and is used. There is some reality that we'll all have to work with here, that this property was annexed into the city of Hudson for commercial use. The land has been intended as part of the city of Hudson's comprehensive plan for commercial use, and that's not a change. It's not a change that this intention is out there and has been out there for a significant period of time. But what I will tell you is that Hudson Physicians, from the inception of this project, is not shy about saying to me and in offering access to Matt Brandt, its CEO, in talking to neighbors, in working with neighbors, in working to make sure that as many of the impacts are mitigated as is possible. And I know we've talked to Mr. Dolmeyer to the north. Again, the conversations with Chris. I think the other reality here is that the property to the south of us, the large parcels, are slated for commercial development at some point in the future as well. So there's also an integration that we have to plan for, in that this area is going to be much more commercial. So yeah, it's a matter of trying to fit all these pieces together. We want to work with the adjacent landowners and will work with the adjacent landowners. But at this point, we believe that the commercial use is consistent with what the city has planned for the use of this property for some time.
All right, thank you. Any other neighbors? And Chris,
I would like to say something.
Brian, okay.
It's been very nice talking to Matt and Nick about all of these things, and I was surprised like everyone else was. But what's more, all of these things are a concern to me, but what's one of the concerns is the penciled in lines through my house and my parents' house, if that road would ever go through, as well as all these other things. But if that happens down the line, I would have to get out of my house. So that's just one other issue that is a who knows what if. But they've been very accommodating when they're shading out some of the parking potentially on the east side of the property. Who knows if that's going to stay true or not? That concerns me because I couldn't live there if that happened.
Yeah, and let me just say there on the road that shows up on the site plan that swings to the east and then to the north. Hudson Physicians is not proposing to locate a road on its property. It doesn't need a road, frankly, and ultimately it's additional cost, it's additional area within the property that we're giving away and that we can't utilize. There are certain improvements that we have to make as a result of the city's need. That include a stoplight on Carmichael, that include the roundabout to service the future development of the southern property. But the city also has an interest in taking some pressure off of Carmichael Road at some point in the future. And you see it a little bit, the start of it in the Bella Rose development on Vine and Carmichael, where there are proposed extensions running north and south. West of Carmichael. And I think that the city's plan is at least to start to think about how the other properties to the north, if and when they come into the city, are accessed by a road other than Carmichael. Now, there are a lot of properties between these three and County Road UU, and actually getting a road from north to south is going to be a process. There's topography there to deal with. And ultimately, we don't know whether some of these properties are going to develop or whether they'll remain in the town in perpetuity. So I think, that piece of it is the start of kind of a city planning process to say, how do we plan for the future to potentially take some pressure off of Carmichael. But at the end of the day, it's not necessarily going to result in a road through any particular area unless and until other properties develop, which presumably will include all of the properties to the north, because they will all have to be part of a development. So you see it on our map because it's part of city planning, but it's not anything that we're proposing or that we've come up with as our idea. It's the start of a concept that in the future may or may not come to fruition. But we're not going to build that road. Somebody else will build it in the future, but only if the rest of the properties develop and need access in that particular location.
Correct. And there are some true statements in what you said about us trying, the city as a whole, trying to alleviate that. But back to Chris's legal dissertation, if you will. I think you might have lost sight while you were stating your case, Chris, that this has, as Nick said, been on the comprehensive plan for a very long time of development of that whole side of the east side of Carmichael, including over a 200,000 square foot Walmart, super Walmart.
Correct.
It's always been intended for that. Now, I don't know the longevity of the history of the residents out there, but it's always been planned that way for quite some time, as long as I've been here, which is all my life. And Pat and Fred might be able to also address that. And it's been talked about being developed for quite some time. Pat, go ahead.
The current owner of the property is Ron Clark Companies, and they had planned originally a gas station and convenience store on that location. And they just couldn't wait any longer for the decision to be made on the Anderson property as to when that was going to move and come forward. And Hudson Physicians now want to go there, which would be better than the other had done. But that whole corridor has been planned.
And on top of that, the DOT has put a wrench in a lot of this because of the redesign of Carmichael, the exit and on and off ramps to the north of the bridge there.
Mm-hmm.
So there are many concerns with all the traffic out there. Are there any other residents that want to speak to this, or any other plan commission members? There is a motion and a second on the floor.
So I guess I do have, oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
This
Go
is
ahead. You're first.
Kelly Yoakum at 423 Jack Pine Drive. So back to the future proposed road, which would be adjacent to our property. Is that something that also has been part of the plans with the city, again, to alleviate some of the traffic off of Carmichael? Or is that now due to the size and complexity of the proposed usage of Hudson Physicians? Because as I understand what the plan is, that it's a day surgery center / medical campus hospital. And so is the road to help alleviate the volume of traffic that would be created because of that project? So if there was a different usage, would the future road not be necessary?
No, I think the answer to that question is no. If the road were necessary, the city would require us to put it through now. We've got a traffic study that will provide that Hudson Physicians will be able to service all of the traffic coming through Carmichael to the road that serves the property. It's not a function of the trips to this center. It's a function of the number of cars that actually travel Carmichael each and every day with the traffic that pounds that road currently.
And have there been other properties taken into consideration for Hudson Physicians and Hudson Hospital beyond this piece of property for the development?
Yeah, of course. Hudson Physicians has looked at a number of sites, but for any number of reasons, not the least of which is being in an area that has been intended for commercial use, being central to the interstate, being in an area that ultimately will be easy for patients to access. This one checks a number of boxes for healthcare access and accessibility.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
If I may comment now, Randy, just I want to chime in a little bit on what Pat said, that yes, that east side has been slated for development long time. I mean, it's unfortunate if you're a newer resident and you weren't aware of that, or your neighbors had them aware of that. We feel for you, but I mean, it was there and it's coming. The other thing that I want to say is that, the planning commission is very concerned about all of this, all the people on the planning commission. when a development like this should and could come in, as we tried to do very hard with the golf course being converted to single family housing. Yes, we're concerned about the neighbors. Yes, we're concerned about the roads. Yes, we're concerned about the drainage. And so a lot of the issues that have been brought up in this meeting, I think will be handled very professionally and you know, to the best possible outcome in the end. It is a bit premature at this point. The last comment I want to make is the type of development that we, you know, are seeing coming here. I would rather have it be professional office space or something like that rather than a super Walmart or something like that. And I think most people here would concur with that. So if we get a chance to say what type of preference of development comes into Hudson or is your neighbor, what do you choose to have? And, you know, we're unfortunately, some of us are forced to answer that question.
Thank you, Fred. The other point with that, Fred, is that we're dealing with a local identity. So if there are issues and we have a developer and a representative of the developer that will work with the city and address the concerns of the neighbors out there. And I can attest as probably much as the plan committee can that they have addressed these issues in the past with different developments to our pleasure. So instead of dealing with the super Walmart in Bentonville, Arkansas, we're dealing with Hudson Physicians based out of Hudson. So we get a little more for our concerns addressed. Any other further comments?
I do have one quick question. This is Gary.
If you could state your name and address for the record, please.
Gary Van Vorst, 107 East Bank Court North, Hudson. I'm associated with the Erickson Trust, which is an owner of Double Play LLC. And I'm just a little confused at this point. And I'm sorry I didn't join until a little bit later. Is Nick Vivian representing Hudson Physicians, or is he representing in his new role as the city attorney of Hudson?
He is not, well, I can tell you, he is not the city attorney at this point. He is representing the Hudson Physicians.
At what point is he going to be the city attorney?
Nick, do you have a start date?
Our appointment starts on May 1st.
Correct.
Okay, so in about 3 weeks, he'll be the city attorney. Is that considered a conflict? I'm not here to debate it. I just raised the question that it could potentially be a conflict of interest.
No,
with the future.
Yeah, fair question, and that's been discussed with the city. The city will be represented on this project by other council, and so the city has made arrangements through the pendency and the transition to be represented by council on this particular issue. But I will be representing Hudson Physicians through the completion of the project.
And Mr. Vandervorst, nothing Nick has said tonight has been represented. He has not been representing the city.
Yeah. But as of May 1, he'll be representing the city interests.
That is correct.
No.
Not on this
Not on this project.
No.
Not on this project, correct.
But he will be representing the city May 1st, but not on this project. Any other questions or concerns? There is a motion on the floor. All those in favor of the motion signify aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Seeing none, the motion for rezoning is approved. Thank you, everybody, for that. That will go to council now for consideration. And anything else, any other business before Plan Commission today? What else is on the agenda, Tiffany, Emily?
I don't believe anything else is on the agenda for
All right,
tonight.
I will move that we adjourn.
Second.
If there's no objections, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everybody. Have a good evening.